Hi, my name's Elizabeth, and today we are going to turn these and some sugar and some water into marmalade. So first, we're going to do a little bit of slicing while I tell you about how this wonderful and very simple recipe will allow you to combine any kind of citrus you want: lemons, oranges, grapefruits, Seville oranges, Valencia oranges, navel oranges, what other kind? Blood oranges, mandarin oranges, any kind of citrus you want into marmalade. So traditionally it's made with Seville oranges because Seville oranges have a lot of pectin. California style marmalade uses sweet oranges, which take some of the bitterness out. In this lemon, I'm just going to make sure that we don't have any seeds. You don't want seeds on your toast. Here's a seed we're going to take out. Okay, looks good. All right, put these guys in here. Did you see? Nice little smiley half-moon shapes. With this orange, I'm going to do just what I did with the lemon. Okay, slice like this. But then I'm going to slice them in quarters because you are going to put this on toast and you don't want the pieces too big. So once I've chopped up all of these pieces of citrus, I have equal parts citrus, sugar, and water. So first I'm going to take the citrus and pour it into a pot right here. Okay. Then I'm going to cover it with, if you've got 8 cups of citrus, you want to cover it with 8 cups of water. 7 cups of citrus, 7 cups of water. It's quite simple. 5 cups of citrus, 5 cups of water. All right, so we're going to cover these guys. And this is a really rewarding recipe because it's super beautiful. We're going to bring this to a boil and then add the sugar. All right, we have brought our citrus and water mixture to a boil. Now I'm going to take it off the heat. I've stirred it a couple of times while it's been on the stove so that the pulp starts to loosen up. Alrighty, so now I've removed it from the heat. We've got this nice mixture where the pulp starts to sort of fall off the rinds. We have rind and pulp. It's slightly less beautiful than it was when we put it in the pot. All right, now that it's off the heat, I'm going to pour in my equal part sugar. I know it looks like a lot of sugar. It will still be bitter, I promise. All right. I'm going to let this, stir this up, let it dissolve. And it'll start to thicken up. Then once it's dissolved, I'm going to cover the pot and let it sit overnight. Overnight means a really, really, really good night's sleep. Like more than 8 hours, like maybe 12 hours, or maybe even 2 days. It's the pectin from the rind that needs to get into the sauce, and that takes a little bit of time. So give it at least 8 to 12 hours. And more is fine if your life gets in the way. All right, cover pot, and see you in a while. All right, we have let our pot have a very nice long night's sleep. And now we have this great mixture that's been sitting. It's rind, it's pulp, it's sugar, it's water, and we're ready to turn on the heat and let it simmer for 2 to 3 hours. It depends on your fruit whether or not you simmer it for shorter or longer. You're trying to evaporate the water so you have a more concentrated mixture of the good orangey lemon flavor and the bitterness of the rind. So this fruit is pretty average. I would say we're going to simmer this for about 2 hours. All right, we have now boiled our beautiful concoction for about 2 hours. And we've reduced the liquid in the pot maybe by about a third. We've got this beautiful, like golden brown orangey color that's starting to emerge here. And what I'm going to do at this point is crank up the heat so we have a really rolling boil. It's nice to have a spoon or more of a wooden paddle that has a flat bottom so you can make contact with a nice section of the pot at any given time to make sure that you're keeping things moving and not sticking. You'll notice that some foam forms on the top. Some marmalade recipes will suggest that you skim off the foam. I always find that by the time I put it into the jars that there isn't any foam left. So I've never gone to that length, but if you want to, go ahead. All right, we have been boiling this vigorously and stirring this consistently for about a half an hour. What you're trying to do here is, in addition to evaporating more water, you also want to get it up past 210, 212, even up to 220 degrees. If you want to be really thorough, you can use a candy thermometer to measure the exact temperature. And what that does is make doubly sure that through this boiling process that you have killed, any possible mold or yeast that could possibly happen. But because this boils for so long, this is actually a really, really safe thing to preserve. So what I'm going to do now, I've put this plate in the freezer, so it's really cold. And we're going to I'm actually going to turn this off so I don't scorch the stuff that's on the bottom of the pan. Easy there, fella. Okay. All right, so I'm going to put spoon a little bit of this onto the plate. Tilt it around. And look what it did. It stopped like dead in its tracks. I would say this might be a little bit on the firm side. And if you like firm marmalade, proceed. If you like your marmalade to have a little bit more jammy jelly texture, you could even add a little bit more water and mix it in before we proceed to the next step. At this point, we're going to put this nice hot marmalade into hot jars. There are two paths at this point. I'm going to put the jars that I fill with marmalade for 10 minutes in a water bath canner. They've boiled for so long that they're probably already good to be preserved, but I like to be extra safe. It's also possible if you're making a small batch and you just want to put them in jars and keep them in the fridge, you'll be totally fine. You may find that your friends and family like it so much that it doesn't last long enough to merit preserving. So at this point, I'm going to transfer the marmalade into the jars. As I was stirring in this final step on the high heat, I had these jars in the oven at about 220 degrees. Because when you're putting hot mixture or cold mixture into glass, you want to make sure that your glass is sort of in the same ballpark. So hot marmalade into hot jars. In order to do the transfer, I find one of these big measuring cups makes it a lot easier. If you get a canning set, it'll often come with this nifty funnel, which also makes cleanup a lot easier. All right. So look at this beautiful guy here. Okay, and we're going to fill up this jar, leaving about 1/4 of an inch from the top. Ooh, we have a perfect pour, I think. Great. All right. I'm going to make sure that in the process I didn't get any marmalade on the rim or around the threads because that could interrupt the seal. And then I'm going to take one of these lids. I've had these lids in warm water. You don't want to boil them because they could warp, but you warm them up so that this rubber seal around the edge is going to make a nice tight seal when you go to can the jars. So a little hot, so you have this nifty magnetic wand. And there's one. I'm going to put one of these bands around the top. And you don't tie it too tight because the seal is going to do its work all on its own. That's just to sort of keep things in place. And then I'm going to put this jar into a water bath canner and cover it up. And 10 minutes later, we have preserved marmalade. Here we are with a final jar of marmalade. It has come out of the water bath canner and it has cooled enough so that the seal has happened on top and I've been able to tie a ribbon on it. You'll see that it has all of these nice little rind pieces and that when you turn it this way, it doesn't go anywhere, which means we've gotten a nice set for this marmalade. Here is an example of a marmalade where the set didn't happen quite so well. You see, we get it's a little bit too soupy. And in the case that something like this happens, you could always reboil it, or you could just call it marmalade seconds and put it on ice cream. But here we are with our final marmalade. Bon appetit on toast and waffles.